Hello, Stoyan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been following the show, listening and learning, and I'm very honored to be here with you and hopefully contribute to your audience.
Yes, thank you. And I'm very curious to hear about your learnings from movie production, about workshop design and workshop production, if we can say so. And before we go there, I always start at the beginning. When did you start calling yourself a facilitator? And actually, do you?
That's an excellent question. I don't think I really do, even though I've probably been a facilitator ever since I was a little kid, facilitating all the other kids to play at the playground and to come together. And it's evolved in high school, facilitating people to join events and different camps and so on. So I think I've always been facilitating, but I never really called myself a facilitator professionally, even though that's what I do these days. Maybe 90% of my professional time is spent facilitating things.
Mm. And it's funny that you say facilitating on the playground, because when I think of myself being I think a kid in the playground, I would rather maybe be the boss. You do this and you do that instead of really
Really?
facilitating it.
That's very interesting. I don't know. For me, it's always been supernatural to try and understand who else is around me and try to make it fun for everybody else.
Nice. And in our exploration call, you shared that you've been a movie producer.
That's right.
And I would be curious to hear, so how did you get from movie production to workshop facilitation? And what have you collected in your backpack that you now bring to the space? And the reason why I'm asking and curious is because I realized that I would say there's maybe 1% in our profession who graduated from high school with a thought, I want to become a facilitator. Maybe even less than 1%. And all the rest of us, we somehow got into facilitation without ever having planned it. So we all had a life, air quotes, before that. And there's always something that we bring that makes our approach or perspective on facilitation special. So what is the movie production about?
So to go one step backwards, my educational background was finance, and I wanted to be a banker, Wall Street banker. I love mathematics. I fall in love with mathematics. Ended up doing what I'm passionate about, which is movie production. And for those of you who are not aware, the producer is the more or less the project management person on a project, the facilitator of the whole production. So as a movie producer, it is your job to make sure everybody is happy while you deliver the results. It's the movie, so you're the one that will bring the vision and communicate and articulate the vision and get everybody excited on the vision, bring everybody on board, hire creatives on the team, and then consistently challenge, facilitates, and pushes everybody to give their best so we deliver on this vision. And it is really interesting what you can learn, because on a movie set, on a movie production, you might have a lot of different creative people. You have the director, and they have an agenda. The director wants the best possible movie to be emotional, to hit people, to have the special effects sometimes. And then you have the actors. The actors want to look good. The actors want to be in front of the frame. They want to have more lines. They want to look good. Then you have the camera person. They care about the technical things. And, oh, wow, we should move the camera like that. And then we have a drone shot. So everybody cares about different things. And it's your job to facilitate everybody so people are motivated and happy while you end up getting the movie that you envisioned at the beginning, or something better, which is kind of similar to what you do as a facilitator of events, of experiences, of workshops. There's some sense of structure you want to bring into it, but then you also have to let I mean, I don't know about you, Miriam, but in the beginning of my facilitation career, I was too rigid. I was so structured. I wanted everything to go by the plan. And then, you know, you do 200 different events and workshops, and you realize this is not where magic happens. Of course, you want to have an intention. Of course, you want to have a screenplay. But then you also, magic happens in between these structure pieces. So being able to feel the energy of everybody around and facilitating them, sometimes give a little bit more to this person that was very quiet in the back, and you kind of sense that they probably have something nice to share at this very moment. And then you were planning this to finish at 3 p.m., for example, but you kind of feel that if you expand on these 5-10 minutes, this discussion can go so much deeper that can touch everybody else, which is the same with movies. You're like, hey, 3 p.m., we have to start filming this second scene. One more take and we wrap it up. Yeah, but what if you feel that if you do 3 more takes, you really get this very important scene? So you kind of learn to be more flexible and adaptable to the situation and to read people. That's what I learned from movie production.
Thank you so much. I love this this introduction and your perspective on it on so many levels. One is, as you described, the different parts in the movie set. I could almost imagine that you can label these in a kind of workshop or event facilitation. They're always the artists who want to look good and who are a little bit maybe the divas, and it's all about them. And you always have the director who comes in with their own agenda and knows everything already and how it should be. And you always have, so these characters that you described in the movie set, I can see the parallel to just being normal characters as they show up in a workshop. And how you describe that, yes, of course you have your plan, but then it's about dealing with those who are there, and even the actors who want to look good and the directors, their agenda. It's our job as facilitators to make them look good and to help them to really use their potential and their talent. So yes, it can be annoying, and it can spark the magic if you really play with it.
Oh my God, I love that you said that. I just love that you said that, because in such a setup, you're the least important person. Your job is to make everybody feel seen and heard and to learn and to be at the spotlight. And probably the best workshops, facilitation experiences I've been leading were the ones that I'm kind of invisible in the background, just passing the ball, and just everybody's getting something out of it. So yeah, beautiful reflection.
Yeah. And then I don't know about the movie producer. There I have to reveal my total ignorance. I can also imagine that it's also an ego thing, right? So everyone then applauds for the director, for the screenwriter, for the actors, of course. So they're winning all these prizes. And as a producer, your name appears on the list while everyone has already left the movie theater. So yes, you're holding all of this together. You planned it, you facilitated it, and still you're the least important person, perceived person in the space, similar to a workshop facilitator.
And sometimes producers need to work on a project for 3 or 4 or 5 years to complete the feature film. So there's so much effort in the background that is never seen. So there's definitely a lot of learnings. And if you allow me, another very practical learning for me from the process of being a movie producer, this is how I design my workshops these days. So basically, as I told you, Miriam, I come from mathematics. I love spreadsheets. So my way to design a retreat, to design a workshop, to design a speech is pretty much inspired by my years as a movie producer. So I'll put together a spreadsheet, and my spreadsheet, there's the title, which is pretty much what is the core outcome or my core message for this workshop, for this experience? What do I want to leave the participants with? What do I want to be the core theme that every particle, every exercise, every discussion is going to? So I define the outcome and the objective. Of course, I have to confirm it with a client if I have a corporate client, let's say. And then the way I structure my presentations and my workshops is pretty much, so I break down the spreadsheet into a few rows or columns. Is that rows? Columns.
Columns.
So I break down my workshop into a few columns. I have the column that's content. What is the type of content I'm going to deliver here? Bird eye view. I have a column that's outcome. So if that's the content, what's the outcome of this content piece? Then I have duration. What do I roughly estimate this specific part is going to take me and the audience? I have the time, which is what exactly is the time of the day. Maybe from 2 o'clock to 2:15, I'm doing this. And then I also have, what is the method? Is that presentation? Is it group discussion? Is it exercise? Is it sharing with small groups? What is the kind of the method? And then just to make it simpler and easy for me, I also practically add resources. Like, do I need a flip chart? Do I need some other physical object? Do I need music? What do I need in this specific part? So the way I design and structure my workshops is, well, initially I'll get a lot of data from the customer. So what are their pain points? What do they want to learn? And in my case, often it's the users of my customer, because I don't know, if you are working with organization, my client will be a manager or HR or somebody else, but they want to help their team. So I need to understand what the team's challenges, interests, desires are, and what is their level of understanding of these specific subjects.
Yeah. So would you interview them to get the input? How do you proceed then? Or do you have a workshop before the workshop?
So initially I'll try to get as much information from the person who hires me, the HR, the client, the manager. And I always ask for introduction to a few people that will be on the workshop, participants. And I ask the client, hey, can I just jump on a 15-20-minute calls with several or few people from your team? And then I get onto the call and then ask a lot of questions, which allows me, first of all, to understand what's their level, what are their struggles, because the HR might think this is the struggles, but then I understand deeper what the real struggles are. So I do these interviews individually. I take a lot of data, and then based on that, I will adapt and design the workshops so that it fits what I feel they need most. But of course, I get back to the person who hires me to confirm that this is actually what they agree that I should be leading.
Yeah, nice. And I love the spreadsheet approach. Although I must say that I'm using Session Lab now. Well, I've been using Session Lab for years, which is a total game changer. I don't know whether you know the tool. It's basically an agenda planner for facilitators. So it does everything that your spreadsheet does, with the difference that you can actually park and put your activities into your library and then drag them in. And you can switch the times and the color coding around, drag and drop, so that the times change automatically if you reshuffle your agenda. I sent you the link. It's magic. Anyway, side note, I am not an affiliate of Session Lab, but I love them. And I was just wondering that to also build the bridge, or to in the movie set, I can imagine that there as well people are coming with different understandings, maybe interpretations. How much do you have to adjust in the moment?
It's
And
probably
how much
50-50.
how much do you now in your workshops and settings with, after you put together your minute by minute plan?
It's quite a bit of adaptation. And because so many things happen unpredictably, you have, if you're a professional, if you're a really good producer, you'll be extremely good into planning everything by, in my case, it was every 10 minutes, every person on the set knows exactly what they should do. So it was 10-minute kind of blocks. So everything is super pre-planned. Like, initially, you start with writing the story and the screenplay. And it might take sometimes 5, 10, 15 rewrites of the screenplay, which means every time you rewrite it, you need to think about, all right, now that we have a scene in the forest, I need to find a forest. so it's a moving, it's an organism, it's a living organism that's evolving. Now at some point you lock it. Okay, that's it. These are the scenes that we are shooting. And then my job, together with the director and the cinematographer, the DOP, is to sit down and say, well, how do we do it most effectively? Maybe we should start filming the final scene first, because that's going to be most efficient. This is the hardest scene that has the most people. Let's film this scene first, and then we let these 10 people go with the special effects. It's going to be cheaper to keep going. So it's actually making magic. It's making magic. And then you go on set, everything is planned by the minute. I remember we were shooting in, I said forest, I don't know why I said forest, but we were shooting in the Danish forest. It was a fantasy video we shoot for a Danish theme park, in the Norse mythology kind of theme park. So it was this magical Harry Potter kind of vibe video. So we get into the forest and we have to shoot this scene, and it's super dark and cold. And then the smoke machine breaks.
Oh.
We're shooting the second take on the first scene, the smoke machine breaks. And we need the smoke machine to create this magical atmosphere. So what do? Well, somebody needs to find a new smoke machine. Okay, guys,
get the
let's make a pause. Yeah, go back. And my job is literally is, how do we save time? Can we prepare for the next scene? Can the actors, practice and rehearse? Can we maybe try and do these test shoots for the next scene already, and maybe prepare the thing? Or, hey guys, let's go and have some dinner. So you're winning, maybe saving 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I don't know how is it with you, Miriam, when it comes to facilitating workshops and experiences. For me, probably the biggest thing, I don't say it's a challenge, but the biggest thing I'm thinking of when I'm leading and facilitating a workshop or an experience is always, should I allow this discussion to continue because it's very meaningful, or should I just say, excellent points, let's get back to it after, now let's move to the next section?
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on that.
That's a very good point, because I think that's where you differentiate a rookie from a master facilitator, I think. Because is it a tangent that leads eventually to something, or is it deviating and actually is the group avoiding something? Because I think very often we also do it, I think every individual, every human being, we try to avoid pain, right? So if a conversation gets into a place where it's maybe conflictual or difficult, it's so easy to just go on a tangent and to discuss about something that is totally irrelevant. And then as a facilitator, it's our job to snap them out. But then sometimes these tangents can be actually very important. And then it's our job to say, oh, I realize that you're talking about something different now. Is this more important than our actual agenda item? Yeah. Difficult. That makes sense.
It's an art form. It's an art form.
Yes.
Because how do you know? You have to sense it. How do you know that, as you said, this discussion is actually not going to open a communication in between these two people that will lead them to resolve a problem? Maybe not today, maybe in a week from now.
Yeah.
So it's really about sensing, okay, this is my objective for the whole experience or workshop. Is that helping us to get closer to solving this? And can I maybe save a little bit of time on something that I was planning to do later on? Which is where my spreadsheets are super helpful. And I'm going to test the tool that you recommended because that sounds exciting. But it's like, to me, it's like I have this structure with, I don't know, I have to do a 3-hour workshop. Okay. Everything is broken down into 10, 15, 5 minutes. The breaks are there, but I'm not following it 100%. This is my guesstimate. This is my best guess before the workshop happens.
Yeah.
Now you enter the room, you feel the energy, you start a conversation, you find, I mean, I love to start every session, if it allows, with having some sort of a reflection around what the participants are expecting to get out of it. What do they want to learn? And depending on the audience, that could be having them to talk in small groups. Usually that's the case when I do a workshop in Scandinavia, in Estonia. They're not so talkative. I love them, but they need a little bit of space initially. And then, by the way, I don't know if you've done workshops in this region, but they're so sweet. When you say, anybody would like to share, what do you think about that? Nobody raises their hand. And then you go with the microphone and say, how about you, sir? And they start talking. It's fine. So getting the expectations in place allows me to, in the back of my head, have something to think about. So when we have a discussion and it goes a little bit longer, I can think of, well, actually, these people at the beginning of the workshop wanted to learn that. It's a great opportunity to refer back to this issue at the beginning so we can explore it further.
Yeah. Yeah, and everything is so complex when you zoom into it, right? Same as with, how do you know whether it's attention or not? How do you know whether the group is actually ready to share and why they are silent? Is it contributing or destroying psychological safety if you just approach someone and put them on the spot? Because for some, it could be the right nudge. And for others, they can freeze and actually feel threatened. And then again, I think it depends on this very first shot. So what is the very first shot? And how do you set the stage? Is it because you have to take advantage to the high energy or the morning kind of energy, or that everyone is still there? Maybe some have to leave after the lunch break. Maybe it's about setting the tone. And then what do you do if the smoke machine breaks? So suddenly something happens in the workshop that you haven't accounted for. How do you use the time differently and engage the participants?
That's probably something I've been really well trained to do, again, for movie production, because everything breaks all the time. Yeah. Always. The sound guy calls you last minute, he's sick. Okay, anybody done sound before? Okay, Michael, you're doing the sound, right? Like you have to adapt to the situation. And it's always different. I'll give you an example. I was speaking at an international conference, a really cool conference. I'm not going to mention the country because they're probably going to figure out what that is. So everything is super well prepared. I did probably 10 rehearsals for my speech just on Zoom, sharing with other speakers, with my team. They give me feedback. I'm prepared. I slept well, went to the gym. I'm ready. I studied the audience. I went the day before, I tested the tech, I tried everything, all the stuff is working, everything is fine. I met everybody. I'm ready, right? I'm ready to kick ass. I
Then
go to the event. There's a full room. Incredible. I'm like, oh my God, look at the vibe. This is awesome. Now, prior to my speech, the MC is announcing a break. And it wasn't in English. I actually didn't know. She was not speaking English, the MC. So she announces a break and she tells everybody to leave. Now, it's time for my speech. There's 5 people in the room. It used to be 300 5 minutes ago, but she let them out. So now I'm supposed to finish on time. I don't have time to go out and reach out for people. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do my thing. Like it was like a 5-second shock of like, what? 5 people? I'm gonna give them such an amazing experience. It's 5 people. So it took me off guard for 4 or 5 seconds, and then I found myself. I'm like, look, man, you are here to give the best possible experience to these 5 people that arrive. Just get yourself together and give it your all. It's everything that's within your control. And then I started engaging them, asking them questions, just doing my very best. And it was awesome. Of course, by the end of the speech, I have maybe 30, 40, 50 people. They were slowly coming into the room. But I think that should be the attitude for every facilitator. You have to deal with the circumstances as you find them.
Yeah. And then, yeah, to have this, it's interesting. It requires so many meta skills or sub skills. It's about the ego, not to take it personally that everyone has left, and to run after them. And no, you have to stay here because now it's me speaking, right? Could have been or saying, okay, so I wait over the break until they come back, and then let the other speakers know that they have to start later because now it's your turn. And to be in service of those who are there, right? So it's how can you be in service and create an experience for those who actually are there? And it makes me think of what to do when there's often an online session and people are not there yet. And then there's this moment where as a facilitator, you can decide, okay, either I start on time and then many will be late, or I tell those who are on time that, oh, let's wait for a few more minutes before more people arrive. Subtext, because you're not important enough.
That's a really good question. And it really depends on the setup. So if I do my own events, so I do these private masterminds and those type of things, solving for that, I would probably, that's what I do, is I'm going to try to make it meaningful for the people who are there. So ask some questions, play some music. All right, guys, let's do a warm-up exercise. Let's get into breakout rooms. So I get them engaged. It's not part of the content of what I pre-planned, but they arrive on time. So they need to be given something to do, to be, I wouldn't say entertained, but let's engage them. Hey guys, are you coming from Canada? Oh, hey George, good to see you, brother. Nice stuff. All right. Hey, how's the weather? So just I'm playing a little bit of the clown usually if these are my events. Sometimes when I work, with a company for an HR, they're very strict and they would say, I'll just write them a direct message and, hey, what do you think we should do? I think we should start 10 minutes past, but if you want me, I can start now. And then it's their responsibility in a way because I'm there for them. They're my client. I need to advise them, but at the same time, they're the one that will make the final decision what they want to do. Maybe they have a very important meeting afterwards.
And they know their people usually. So they might know the reasons, or it's a company culture that they always start 15 minutes late. And then it's good to know. Yeah. And I like the idea to entertain them, because it's I think the biggest risk, and you laughed when you said entertaining, and I think it's exactly let's call it engaging, not entertaining, although it has an entertainment factor, because I think the biggest risk of letting people wait is that slowly all the energy kind of leaves the body and the mind. And then as soon as someone started to open a tab, start answering an email, turn the camera off, to get them back into the space and happy and engaged and curious, I think is a big task then. So it's easier to really catch them where they are.
And each and every one listening probably have joined an event where the facilitator sees that the people are not there yet, and you have these 5-10 awkward minutes of silence, and are they joining yet, and those kind of things. And it's like, it's really off, right? Why not use this time? Why not use this time to, ask a question, come up with something on the spot, say something uplifting, something kind of related. Why do you guys join? Where you coming from? Just engage people, as you said. And
especially especially online, people, it's not as if they could turn to their neighbor and start a little side conversation. No, they are there totally exposed and basically unable. They have no agency. So it's a very trapped situation that you actually, as a facilitator, don't want anyone to be.
Definitely. And I think the role of humor and fun,
Yes,
it really depends what kind of personality you are, I think. But, and this is one of the, for the listeners who are perhaps early on their facilitation journey, I think one advice I would like to give myself, the 10-year younger version of myself, would be, don't try to be like anybody. Just try to find who you are and bet on your strengths, and just double down and triple down on your strengths. I come out with a lot of energy. I'm the energy guy. I'm the passion guy. I love to facilitate discussions and to go deep. And I have a coaching background. So just like you have a podcast, right? So I love to ask questions and to go deeper. And I love frameworks and structures and step-by-steps. And I might look this other person that's super successful, that is not doing any frameworks, and tells me, you shouldn't do frameworks. Well, that's what I love to do, and people love them. If they don't love it, they probably shouldn't join my events.
Yes, thank you. Totally. And I so +1, +100. And it resonates a lot with me, because I interview a lot of facilitators, obviously. And there was a time where I was almost ashamed, is a big word, but I was wondering, is it just me who works with this minute-by-minute planning? I love to have my frameworks, and I do have my agenda, and everything is planned to the minute. And then I thought, but all the other master facilitators, they're stepping into the room without an agenda, and there's this emergence, and they just ask a question. So what is present now? And then they work with it. And I learned to realize that, yes, as you say, we all have our different ways of doing. And if I would start trying to be them, I would lose my magic. And there's, I think, as you say, the most important part is to be true to ourselves and to find our voice. And I loved what you said. I'm curious when you said that usually in the first minutes you're making the clown, and you made a distinction. You said, when these are my own events. So because what I like about that is, and I don't know what you mean by making a clown, so I would be curious to hear from you, but what I hear is bringing a little bit of humor in, taking yourself not too seriously. So there's a sort of humility that also invites participants to be more of themselves and to take themselves not too seriously? I see you nodding, so maybe you can share an example. Or what makes you say that?
Exactly. This is partly intentional, and you already kind of described it so well, but I'll try to elaborate on that. I want to break the ice. In many cases, participants of a workshop, they might join my workshop that I put together. Maybe they don't know each other, or I might work with a team that kind of knows each other or knows each other really well, but not in this kind of setup, right? They're working on their desks and hybrid, and they know each other in the working setup. I want to break the ice. I want to invite them to be human. I want to crack a joke, and then maybe somebody from the audience will catch my vibe and crack a joke. And then now we have a better vibe, a better frequency, and I'm going to go deeper and deeper. And in this better mental state we get in, people will be more perceptive to have constructive discussions and to be open to learn.
Mm. Yeah. And what makes the difference between you showing up as a facilitator for a client versus having your, air quotes, own audience?
I'm probably not going to be so much different, because clients these days get me on board because they relate to my energy, the way I do things. They know me, they know my approach. However, I will be more mindful about what is the energy, what is the approach the person who hires me wants me to bring in.
Mm.
And some of them sometimes they would say, hey, could you be a little bit more serious, more structured, more formal with them? So I need to kind of respect that while not getting too far away from myself.
Yeah. Staying true to yourself.
For sure. I can't be fully formally structured. It's not gonna work. I'm gonna say a joke and stuff, but I'll still keep in mind what they want to get out of this experience, because I do believe people have different faces. I'm still gonna be me, but there's different versions of me that I show up with every day.
Mm.
So which version I'm going to choose will be dependent on the circumstances, on the seniority of the people that I'm going to be facilitating, right? I'm going to show up with some type of energy in front of 20 years old students, as opposed to senior executives, 60 years old, super senior experienced people. Maybe I'm not going to be the clown of that one. Maybe I can tell a joke that's more appropriate to begin with, and slowly we'll get them to a place that they can be more open. But I have to be more mindful who is in front of me.
Yeah, it's always about the audience, right? Because if you do the clown, you can lose their respect and their focus in a minute. Whereas if you do make maybe an insider joke or use their language, you can win their respect and their attention within a split second. And I like that.
Or maybe ask a question to begin with your presentation, your workshop, or maybe show some statistic that's very important and shocking in a way, and really very relevant for the industry that they're in. So then you might choose to have your hook a little bit different depending on who you're speaking in front of.
Just like in the movies, it all depends on who your audience is.
But think about it. Every movie has this opening scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is designed. There's this shocking scene, the character, right? They be put into this situation and something happens. Maybe it's a catastrophe from the get-go. Or maybe not. Maybe actually the movie starts really quietly and it evolves, and then there is a shocking moment because they want to establish the characters. But everything is intentional. And it's kind of the same in a workshop setup. You want to intentionally at least think about it. Doesn't mean you're always going to be successful with the execution, and you have to adapt on the way, but you need to have an intention. What is the kind of emotions I want to bring into the room at the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh, I have this, I have to speak at a private event in Denmark in front of 300 top-level executives from the largest companies. Now, I haven't finished preparation for that, but I would imagine I'll probably say some Nordic joke. I lived in Denmark for 10 years, right? So I can say some Nordic joke, which is a little bit more like a sarcastic, dark humor or something to get their attention, show some data, and then I'll get them into where I want to get them.
Do you, and as you spoke a lot about public speaking, I wonder to what extent you use facilitation, so really to engage the group as a speaker, or whether you would consider these two different skill sets.
It depends again on the audience. If I'm giving a little bit more freedom and more time, let's say I have a slot of 30 minutes or 45 minutes, then I will definitely use facilitation tools and methods. Nobody can keep the attention of people for 30, 45, not nobody, but it's very hard to keep the attention. And it's just not engaging. So for sure, I'll give you a couple of examples. I will probably somewhere during my speech ask them to share something for a minute to the person next to them. Share like a key learning or reflection. I'll probably ask a question. And in many cases, they actually have a mic person. So I ask a question, I can really get the answer from a couple of people. During the speeches, during the keynote, I love to finish my keynotes with a guided meditation or visualization. Which is, again, not the usual thing speakers do, but then I can touch them. I can touch the emotions. And I can kind of close the whole thing in a place that they can imagine if this thing we were talking about is actually resolved, how does it look like? They can see the future. So I'm just guiding them, just facilitating them to see the future. And it has a much bigger impact on them as opposed to me staying for 30 minutes and just speaking one-sidedly.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. How did you get from facilitation to public speaking, or from public speaking to facilitation?
So they were coming together in many ways. The story is, I was running my video production company and I did a coaching degree in London. I never finished, but I did all the training. I started coaching first my friends. I had no idea what I was doing.
Are they still your friends?
You're my friends. They didn't want to be coached. They wanted to help me. But then one of them actually got a job at BCG and it gives me a lot of confidence. And then I got a few other people that she referred to me. So I got some real clients. Long story short, I was running my video production company. One of my clients that I didn't know before, he called me, and after the coaching session, one-on-one coaching session, he told me, Stoyan, how's it going with a workshop you wanted to put out? I remember you wanted to do this workshop called Life is Like a Movie. What happened? How did they like it? I was very busy. I have all these movie projects. I was coming up with all the excuses, and I was doing that for 18 months. So finally he called me out. And he told me, now you have to put together your speech, your workshop. You have 30 days. And I'm like, okay. Then he was using my methods, right? Like accountability, right? So you have 30 days. If you don't deliver, you have to pay £500 to some kind of a charity that you don't support. For example, some extreme feminist organization that says that men are horrible people. And I'm like, okay. So he hung up the phone and I'm like, oh my God, now I have to deliver. I'm so afraid. I don't know if I'm ready, if I'm good enough, all these kind of things. But I made an event on Facebook, 2015 or 16. And I invited everybody.
How to, what was it? To make your life, plan your life like a movie.
Life is like a movie. Be a
Life.
freaking hero, something like that. That was the first title. And I was, there was so many tools from filmmaking we can use. Like, what if you see yourself as the director, producer, and screenwriter of your own story?
Mm.
How would you like the story to be? Do you have a screenplay for your life? And what do you do to execute on your screenplay as a producer, as a director? Do you show up as the main character of your movie? Or do you show up as the extra that's always in the corner, nobody knows, and they're not doing anything that they want? They're just doing what they, hey, do the coffee in the background. Who are you, right? Is your life a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it a
An
horror
action
story?
movie.
It's an action movie,
Yeah.
right? So all those kind of things. And I put up the event, Miriam, right? 60 people sign-ups. I think I had 9 people waiting list. I'm like, oh my God, I have to deliver now. So, but I was going to so many workshops and seminars and conferences and experience. I've seen so much stuff. So I did my workshop. I was sweating at the beginning. I make people to talk to each other. They had a really good time at the end.
Mm.
First time it went well. It was fine. I survived.
Good
And
enough.
I was like, oh, like good, survived. And then after the speech, a friend of mine comes with this lady from China. It's like, Stoyan, she really wants to talk to you. I'm like, sure. And she's like, oh my God, really? I can, oh my God. She's so got, because, I think they have this year. If I'm a speaker, then I'm somewhere really high in the hierarchy, I guess. And I was just surviving, but she didn't know. So she comes to me and she's like, I wanted to share with you that I grew up in this small village in China. And I was growing up in an environment where women do not make decisions.
Mm.
Like when we were growing up, men were eating on the table. We had to clean up, and whatever is left, we eat it on the floor, the leftovers. And I'm 25, she said at the time. I'm 25 years old. I never made a decision for myself in my life. To come to this event, I called my mom and dad and I asked, hey, should I go to this event? And they told me to come. And when I get married, my husband will decide instead of my parents. Now, I came to your workshop, and now you ask me to close my eyes and see myself and see, what do I want the movie of my life to be? So I imagine myself as a storyteller. I want to empower other women in China to show up for themselves and be their own leaders. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And she hugs me, and she doesn't let go. She just stay with me. Like, and I'm staying, and I'm like, okay, I waited for 18 months not to do an event because I thought I'm not good enough. What if there were 18 other people like her that I could have touched? But I didn't, because I was thinking about myself. What will happen to me? I'm not good enough. What if I fail? Who cares about me? It's not about me. I'm the vehicle. We are vehicles as facilitator. We have a God's work, I think. We're there to serve. And the moment is shift, you can't get me off stage now. Like, I don't need to do any exercise, and I'm not nervous anymore. I just show up. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Because I can't wait to see the transformation in the people.
That's beautiful. Thank you for the reminder. And I think for those who are starting off as facilitators, it's such a good reminder to just get out there and get started. And you never know what this will lead to. Because for me, it was similar. I started my facilitation career, air quotes, with idea parties that I threw. And so it was basically the invitation, my co-working space, come with a problem, have a beer, we together brainstorm on a solution, and you leave with new ideas and new friends. And I did that, I think, over a year. And it was through these events that suddenly people started to reach out to me and to ask me if I had time to facilitate workshops or to help them with the design of their workshops. And then I realized, oh, that's a thing. And later I learned that, oh, there's a name for idea parties. It's actually a mastermind.
I love it. I love it. This is so inspiring. This is so inspiring. And I can see it in your eyes as well, how much passion you have about that. But for me, it's like, give me some context. Give me a problem and let's bring me together with a few other people like yourself, so we can come up with ideas how to design something awesome so we can solve it.
Yeah. And that's the beauty in our profession, right? To make this happen. And I think if we have the calling for that, if this is really exciting us, then we have, as you say, we have to do something with it. And the first times will be crap, and that's okay. But eventually we'll touch people and we'll get our word out and find our own style.
And it has to be taken with such a mindset. Your first 10 workshops or speeches or events, or even 20 or 50, they're probably not going to be perfect. See, this is my learning ground. This is my experimentation. I used to, the first 10 times I was a little bit more focused on my ego, to be honest. I was like really nervous and trying to be perfect. But then I realized, all right. And I was still not getting paid for everything I did back then. So it was like, okay, I'm not getting paid from this university, but they give me an audience and they give me an hour. Let me try to tell these 3 stories and see if they work. Let me try to ask this question and see if it works. Let me try this energizer. So see it as a testing ground.
Yeah.
See what works, see what doesn't work. What do you like to do? Who are you? Build some portfolio of, work with all these people, get some testimonials. It's the best time ever.
Yeah, that's very true. And from your perspective now, so obviously it's different when you're just starting, but today, what do you think makes a workshop fail?
There's so many things. I would say the first thing is failure to understand or clarify what's the objective of the workshop. Failure to gather enough data about what really people are struggling with, what is their level of understanding on the kind of topics that you want to lead them through. So that's the first part, the content, the designing part. And then is the facilitation and engagement. I think it's massive. We've all been on this super amazing title workshop exactly on the topic. Then you enter and the person there is just absolutely not engaging. People start talking to each other, looking at their phones, and that breaks the experience entirely. Mm-hmm. And this is the mastery of a facilitator. You got to change your energy. You got to change approaches. Like, I don't know about you, Miriam. I love to have a plethora of different methods incorporated in an experience. Might start very slow. Might tell a story. Then I might get super crazy. I might play a video and show this too. Now get them to talk to each other. And I go to them and talk. Like, it has to be different. You have to try different things to engage them and keep them motivated and being part of the experience.
Yeah. What's your do you have a favorite exercise? Favorite activity?
There's a signature visualization that I love to do at the end of my sessions, which is exactly connected to my first ever workshop. So I get people to close their eyes and imagine that they're in a movie theater and the movie that plays is their dream life 5 years in the future. So in the next 5 or 10 minutes, I lead them with some really nice music background to imagine in a very big detail all the things that they're grateful about that happened 5 years in the future if everything they want came true. So that's my favorite. The faces of people. Some people cry, and it just makes me so happy. That sounded a little weird. But, you know.
I get what you mean. Yeah, because you touch them, as you say. Yeah. And you
It's
change
probably
something. And we do remember the emotions, right? We do remember how we felt, even if we don't remember anything of the content.
and this is the most meaningful. We often, I mean, I often do, I can't speak about you either, but we often do very practical workshops. Time management for salespeople, super practical, identifying priorities, being better in focusing on what matters. Like, it's super practical. It works a lot. I'm very satisfied after workshops, seeing them win afterwards. But my biggest happiness comes when somebody writes me 2 months after a session or workshop that I actually really touched them. And then personally, they changed something. They made a change in their personal life. They like this is, you know, on the happiness side, that's not even close.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a very important point, the 2 months later. So having an impact, a longer term impact, which is more than, oh, that was a nice workshop.
And I want to just take a moment here and praise you for the amazing work that you do, not just with facilitation, but with facilitating communities, with actually taking the time to create this podcast, not just to create this podcast. Guys, you have no idea how much effort this lady is putting into bringing you exceptional experience with this podcast. I'm guesting on many podcasts. This lady is preparing. She's taking the time. She's putting a lot of positive energy. So thank you so much for being an example.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think that being a podcast host is also a facilitative act. I am inviting a guest, and then it's my job to make you look good. And right? And to provide the audience with an experience that they can find inspiration from. And then sometimes guiding, yes, we do have, I send you questions in advance, like an agenda. Often I don't ask them, but then it's the openness to see what is there to emerge and then follow the guest. And for that, and I think that has to do with what you just mentioned with the facilitator and the energy. We had an exploration call because I want to meet you beforehand. And no, okay, is the energy an energy with, or is this a person with whom I can have a 45 minutes, 90 minutes conversation with? If I don't feel it in a 20 minutes exploration call, I don't invite you on my podcast. It's nothing personal.
This is exactly what we've been speaking about during the whole episode, right? You do have an intention where you want to bring this conversation. As a guest, it's very helpful that I receive this set of questions because I can already think a little bit about it. Doesn't mean I'll have a screenplay, but I can think about what is the kind of vibe you want to bring. Maybe I can come up with a story, an example that I can share on the podcast. And now that I'm reflecting on the episode, we did cover some of the questions. I don't think we covered all of them, but it was really helpful that brings the quality up. That brings the quality up.
Yeah, I think it's for me, it's the focus on the curiosity. So to really play with what you offer me. So you're telling me a story, and then I ask a follow-up question, and I'm curious to hear what else comes up. So one of the standard questions.
All right.
Yeah. What is your number one facilitation challenge?
My number one facilitation challenge. I think we did cover a little bit about that, but I'll get back to it right now. For me, is exactly what we discussed. Maybe 30 minutes ago, and it's understanding when to make a pause, when to let the discussion to continue, when to expand this exercise. And I wouldn't say it's a challenge. I think it's more something that keeps my mind busy. I don't think I have challenges when it comes to this. I love it. It's just I love it. It's my favorite part. I'll tell you what. It's another one. Probably having somebody who's extremely negative in the room. And I think professionally, I handle them really well, but I'm a very empathetic person. So I'm absorbing the negativity. So when there is somebody who's extremely negative and skeptical, it takes a lot out of my energy and puts me off. And this is an interesting one, right? How do you handle them? Because you want to keep them involved. Yeah. And some of these people, if you manage to turn them, they become your biggest fans.
Yes, 100%. And so yes, I can totally relate to that challenge. And on my good days, I like to see why they're negative. So what is because usually nobody wants to be the negative, whiny, nagger person. Right? So they all have the impression that they have all the right to be that way because something is apparently off. So either they don't know why they're in the workshop, or they haven't been introduced, or they have the impression that they're not heard, or that they are not seen, that they're not contributing. So I think, and the moment where we can help them to feel seen and heard, this is the moment where suddenly they have so much energy that they can actually contribute to the space and to the group. But that's a biggie.
As you said, sometimes somebody signed them up for the workshop. I work a lot with organizations, with companies. So they joined the workshop 2 months ago or 6 months ago. They had another trainer, not a facilitator, and the experience was horrible. Or they heard that this is something that's woo-woo stuff and it's not for them. And then they come to the workshop with this hat of, it's going to be horrible. Why am I here? Maybe. Or maybe they had a bad day. As you said, it's your responsibility to understand where is it coming from. And there are different techniques and ways to do it. If they're so much taking the energy from the room, and they're very vocal, it might give a little exercise to get people to speak in pairs and then have a little chat with this person and understand what's going on. I mean, I do that sometimes because, if people are there for 2 hours or 3 hours, I want to protect the time of everybody else in the room. Yes. Yeah. So I'll sit together and say, hey, hi, what's your name? Michael. Michael, is everything all right? And then we have a real chat with Michael and we'll agree upon the expectations. And then after the workshop, I might spend some extra time to care for them, to answer some questions, even during the workshop, maybe to involve them, include them, if I understand where their challenge is coming from. But it's a biggie. It's a biggie. Yeah.
And as you say, it's the moment where it affects our energy, then it's difficult, right? Because I think we all have our allergy personas. And I think because they trigger us in something, maybe an uncertainty or insecurity in ourselves, or if we're the happy, energetic person, then they're impacting our vibe and our mojo. And I think that's what I meant with when I'm in a good place, at my best, then I can regulate and I'm aware. But if I'm not at my best, if I'm on the edge, if I'm not taking care of myself, if I haven't slept enough, and you mentioned a few of those, then it's very difficult. to actually be this open-hearted facilitator and say, oh, I hear you.
Mm. And yet this is what makes you total pro, right? It's not convenient, but I always think about if I have a challenging group or I haven't slept or something happened, it's like, all right, man, show me now, right? And I'm going to give you a story. And if you think it's inappropriate, we can cut it off the episode. But it's like, okay, so we do a retreat in the mountains for a group of graduates from an MBA program. One of the people is like, this was amazing. This was so transformational. It was Sunday. He's like, guys, on Monday, I want you to meet the chief HR from the company I work for. We need to do that for my company. All right. My partners went. They met the HR chief. On Tuesday, he approves the budget. And he says, the same thing, we do it for a team of 30 people Friday. You guys free this weekend? Yes. Okay. 3 days. Can you do it? Yes. Okay. They're sending us a bunch of people on Friday, 30 people. Drive them with a bus 3 hours from the main city to the mountains after work. So this is 6 p.m. We designed the program. The HR approved it. It's going to be usual. I wasn't part of the discussion because my partner was communicating with HR. We have a full week, almost no time for anything. We just go, and this is the program exactly like the week before. So the guys are coming, and they're from a production company, like production, not movie production, traditional production company, right? So people come in, and we start with the workshop on the passion test. So the idea was having people to realize what are their top 5 passions, what makes them happy out of work. And from the very beginning, somebody raises their hand. Who is even talking about happiness? You just have to make it through the day. Interesting energy, right? The group. So in the next 3 days, you can imagine we're slowly getting deeper and deeper, and people start relaxing. A few of them almost got into fights, physical fights, because they didn't really like each other. So this kind of group, right? Now, day 3, it's Sunday. Everybody's smiling. We did a lot of facilitation, games, events, workshops. And then let's wrap up with the exercise from improvisational theater. So I say something, you continue the story. Maria says something, and the only rule is the story needs to be consistent. Okay, so if I say something, you can't something that's not gonna make it consistent. So I'm starting. We had a retreat in the mountain. And then the second person says, the weather was sunny. There were some squirrels playing around on the trees. Okay, and we go on and on until it goes to one guy, the manager, and he says, the best part is that we did not miss any sex this weekend. Everybody's quiet. What? Because the management is effing us every single day. Everybody, the whole group start clapping and laughing. And so that's it's like, okay, I think we made some progress this weekend, but there's a lot of work to do here, which is good. It's an opportunity, right? But sometimes you have these kind of groups, which is, it's very challenging. It's very challenging, and you can't fix all the things because it's been piling up for years. But even if you do 5, 10, 20% change and have them to talk and to create some better understanding, better trust in between each other, it's a good starting point.
Yeah, that's a good point. To manage expectations and to realize that, okay, in 3 days, we cannot make up for a decade of toxic culture. Yeah, I think we know these groups. And then it's, if we're in our middle, if we can manage our own presence and mindset, this helps a lot. I think that's one of our main responsibilities as a facilitator.
And if you manage to remain positive, to keep the energy up, to achieve the goals and the objectives of your facilitation experience with such a group, the next time when you have a super open-minded and positive group, oh my God, so much easier, because you've seen the worst and you performed under the worst of circumstances. I had to do a TEDx talk, and I'm not going to go in detail, but due to many organizational technical issues, I ended up sleeping an hour or two, right? And I was the first one to speak, which was a good thing. But you know, I show up on stage. I gotta be honest. I got a Red Bull. I don't drink energy drinks. I got a Red Bull. I put myself together. I made a little meditation. I show up. I did the TEDx, and it was many technical complications after my TEDx. Anytime I go on stage and everything is smooth or there's some small hiccups, it's like easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I also think that it depends a lot on our capacity to navigate through conflict and to stand in the fire, whether we can help a group to really have these very conflictual and heavy conversations. So if participants are about to get in a fist fight during the retreat, there's a lot of material to actually guide them through and to work with. Yeah, you have to be ready for that.
And it comes down to another topic, which is choosing the clients that you want to be around.
Oh, yes. That's true. And what culture they have. So doing the homework first. Yes. Wonderful. Spoken for over an hour. Is there something that you would have wanted to share with the audience, but we haven't touched upon it yet?
Yes, there is one thing that I think might be of value for the people listening. And I think for me, a game changer in my career as a facilitator, as a speaker, as a consultant happened when I created my own framework, original framework, methodology. Back in 2019, I was working quite a bit together with somebody who's not a facilitator. He's a CEO of a startup acceleration program, but he saw the opportunity and also the challenge for, in this case, founders not having a structured methodology that will help them to pay attention to their team, their performance, their productivity. So together we developed methodology, which is an acronym. It's called Perform, and it presents these 7 areas. So we went out, we did a lot of research. I personally interviewed more than 250 people, including people like the founder of Reebok, the former president of Starbucks, like many of these people, and trying to find out within our methodology, our framework, what are the strategies that successful leaders have implemented. So we collected a lot of original content. Most of this content wasn't ours, but we systemized it and curated it. And just as a message to everybody listening, having a original framework, original methodology, a book is a door opener. It really opens a lot of doors, and it makes it so much easier for you to even design your sessions. Oh, let me take a few exercises from effective planning chapter and section. So that could be helpful for this and that. And having a podcast, again, generating a lot of original content. What you're learning, Miriam, from all this conversation with amazing leaders, now you learn something from here, you learn something from there. You can chop down a little video. And then next time you have a workshop and you want to make a point, you'll say, by the way, the person from this company is doing that when they facilitate their workshops. Let me show you what they say. And that opens a lot of doors.
Thank you. I'll put the link to your Perform framework in the show notes.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Stoyan, for sharing your experience with me and the audience.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for doing what you do once again. And if anybody wants to connect, you are more than welcome to join. If you're not on LinkedIn, join LinkedIn, but follow me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I'll say that again. You're more than welcome to connect on LinkedIn, on Instagram, drop me a message, send an email. If you're curious about the kind of topics that I cover, which are around productivity, leadership, and entrepreneurship, you can also check out my podcast, Productivity Mastery. So hope you guys enjoy that and have an amazing day.
Thank you. Dum, da, da, dum. That's the end.